Well, welcome to this webinar on mindset. I am so happy you all have joined. I'm Ann Kursinski, five-time Olympian, coach, clinician, author, and trainer here at my stable, Market Street, in Frenchtown, New Jersey. And I'm very happy to be joining up today for this webinar series with longtime friend, former student, trainer, and now mindset coach, Cindy McKee, where we will be talking about how mindset matters more now than ever and how we can all thrive during these trying times and even come out better than before. And as Cindy just said, any questions, my assistant Kelly Huddyman will get on at the end and bring some questions in that were already sent. But if you submit some, we'll try to get to them by the end. And anyway, so this is Cindy McKee.
Thanks for the intro. I'll just tag on to that also. And I think in the chat box, Kelly's going to, at the end, she'll put how to email questions ahead if people miss that opportunity, that they can email questions between this webinar and the next one. So the next one being next Monday. So if they have any questions that pop up, go ahead and send them in. We have a few already. So that's just a little reminder there. So thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you, my longtime friend and mentor in many ways. Just a little background. I met Ann many years ago. We won't count the number. We had her stable right up the road from mine in New Jersey. I was also a contributing editor for Practical Horseman magazine at the time. And I was invited to come along for an interview and photo shoot for a series that the magazine was doing on her. And that was how we met. And then after that intro, I started taking lessons with Ann myself. And then in later years, I started bringing students to her. And so we've kind of kept this going over the years. So I was always drawn to Ann by her impeccable care of her horses, their monitoring, their well-being, their health, their soundness levels. Just her whole systematic training was just so appealing to me. And I also got to watch her treat herself like the Olympian that she was, just keeping her own health and fitness right at the forefront and keeping her mental state right at the forefront to allow her to be so successful. So that was how we introed. And then, fast forward for me, years later, I got into coaching and more recent years into specifically mindset coaching because I'm fascinated by the whole what makes this thing work for us or against us. So for Ann, way back when, Ann introduced me early on to a book called The Inner Game of Tennis by Tim Gallwey. And he was talking about all this stuff, and he gave us very specific ideas on how to dial this in and how to get the monkey off our back and take all that self-criticism we'd have going on that was getting in our way. And she had all her students read. I think she was handing out copies right and left, back then, right? And then you had said earlier about, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your intrigue with, way back before anything was named.
Yeah, I have to say, really in the 70s, I was still a kid in California. How could I be better? Way before the Olympics. The Olympics were still a dream then. I was working for Jimmy Williams at the time in California, and just to be better, how could I be my best? And Jimmy Williams would talk about horse psychology and cowboy psychology and getting inside of the horse and inside the horse's brain. And so that how does the horse's brain tick? How do you connect with them better? And in the meantime, how can I be better? That was always, even in the 70s, even when I was a little kid, how can I be better? And so there actually, at the time then, Martina Navratilova and Chris Everett, for most of you, it's probably before your time, but were huge in tennis. And they would go at it, every couple of weeks on these amazing US Open and French and all that, Wimbledon. And they would talk about Martina with her fitness, her strength, all of that, and nutrition somewhat, and also the psychology part. And, then you'd hear about the Eastern Bloc countries are behind the Iron Curtain, and these, Martina lived in this country then, I think, but the Eastern Bloc countries, how this more mind control was a maybe, and sports psychology as well. But even then, so in the 70s, there was no internet, no Google. About the only book I could find really was The Inner Game of Tennis, The Inner Game of Golf, his books, and that's what started. And it was interesting because when I started those, some of it I was already doing, and we'll dive into that more. But some of the suggestions that he had, and then also Charles Garfield. Now I'm losing the name of his book. But anyway, there were like 2 or 3 books is all you could get on sports psychology. So that's how I started. And then even through the years, kind of, I would always work on it. And I always said, if I didn't stay in the horse business, I would become a sports sports psychologist a long, long time ago.
You were fascinated from a very early onset, way early. You had this idea that something was helping these athletes, these top world-class athletes advance, along their dreams and their pursuits. And you knew that it had to do with something up here as well. So you were on it.
Yeah, and part of that for me, you talk about us meeting then in the early 80s, but always, tell me what to do and I'll do it. What can I do to learn something better, faster, that idea. And gosh, if I could, focus better or get over my nerves or repeat the winning over and over again. And again, started going to the gym in the 70s when it wasn't really a big deal to go to the gym, for a woman to go to the gym. How can I be my best?
Right. That's totally awesome. So when there was only sort of sports psychology as we knew it way back then, in spite of that, you still kept that going. That was always a fascination for you, as I've known you. Always, what makes this tick. And for me, as I've evolved in my own personal development and coaching practice, my husband and I studied a lot, really over the last decade. We studied a lot of the top people, thought leaders in the world of personal development. And it really wasn't until I found the whole system, the whole program behind mindset, the neuroscience, the science behind it, that it really ticked for me. As a kid growing up, I was fortunate enough to ride at a stable where we were taught the whys behind everything. Why you approached a horse at his shoulder, why you didn't come at him from the front, why you placed your foot in the stirrup this way to get on, all the things, about it, why we carried our head up and our eyes forward, why we put our heels down. And so I had that mindset growing up, that there was a why underneath everything. And so as we pursued our path of personal development, when we came amongst the stumbling blocks that everybody does in what they want to create in their lives, just personally for ourselves. And when we started to understand and study the science behind why that is, why we find ourselves on rinse repeat, we're like, oh my gosh, we're just wired that way, And with the beauty of neuroplasticity, we know that we can change some of that early wiring that got installed for us at a very early age. We've had experiences in our early years growing up that have either supported us in our dreams coming forward, or they've hindered us. And oftentimes they're subtly installed without us realizing. It's just our experiences that may not have been overt or intentional on anybody's part. We could have grown up in a chaotic household, but we might not have. We might have just had a bad experience in school, or a little friend or something, that said something bad to us, that we took on, and that literally we're operating from that place today. So I'm going to get into that and how that all transpires for us in just a little bit. But I want to really reflect just for a moment on what's going on in the world right now with this pandemic, and how it has us all turned upside down, and all our nervous systems are all jangled up with, because our normal is not normal any longer. And as we go through today and through this series, I think we'll find the perfect opportunity here to say why that actually can be a plus. Not obviously if we've been sick ourselves or known somebody sick, or obviously or lost somebody, which would be heartbreaking. So how we can use this time of being like actually to our advantage of not doing the same old thing day in, day out, because everything is different right now. So with everything being different, we have the opportunity to go after what we really want in a new and different way. Because for many of us, we say we want this, yet we actually have this, right? And there's often a gap between that. So I should invite, hope everybody brought notebooks. Did you bring your notebook? I brought my glasses, but so I would invite everybody to just take a moment and just jot down just a couple of words. You know, what are your fears and frustrations and challenges that were going on before the pandemic hit? What was going on for you that you hadn't quite met your goals, or you found yourself up against a wall, or you're just struggling in one area of your life? And obviously we're here in the equestrian realm, but how we do one thing is how we do everything. So what happens in our personal relationships, or how we treat our health and our wellness, and our careers, all filters into what's happening for us in our equestrian pursuits. So if you can take that, or even if it comes to mind, if you can just think for a moment about what is that negative thought that comes up. And oftentimes it's, I always this, I never this, or they always this, or I am this, fill in the blank, whatever those negative words are that come up for you, the just show up as sheer frustration over and over again, without taking us too far down the slippery slope into all the negative things. But we really want to shine a light on those areas and see what's really, or who's really driving the bus back there. And it's usually a belief system that we took on at a very early age, and we don't know this subconsciously. That's running our show today. So now we're going to pause for a second and just take a breath and lift ourselves just for a moment out of the negative words. And, think or jot down, and we're going to invite you to do this in this next week before we get to our next webinar. Just jot down, what's the dream? What would you really like to see happen in your life? What's the, oh my gosh, it'd be so amazing if fill in the blank. What is that for you? Like, can you allow yourself to dream a little bit? We all have them, but then we squash them down and we think they're not possible. But Anne, you had a very strong dream growing up. So I'd love for you to just talk about that, what that was like for you.
Yeah, well, for sure, this Olympic dream, ever since I was a little kid, growing up in California, I always had this desire to go to the Olympics. I started riding when I was 4. And I had through the years, all the picture books and a lot of them even were black and white at the time, with Mary Chapeau and Frank Chapeau and Billy Steinkraus and Hans Gunther Winkler and these famous Nelson Pessoa, who I ended up meeting, and all of them, later, and when I grew up and showed in Europe. But always this Olympic dream. And yet it's funny, because when I was little, I didn't really talk about it. Maybe when I was really little, but then I didn't talk about it because I didn't think it would happen. I'm from California. I'm not on the East Coast. And yet, yes, Robert Ridland, our chef today, he came from California. Mary Mars Chapeau, she also, both from the Flint Ridge Riding Club, went on to the Olympics. So I always had that. It's interesting. I always had this dream. And even when I autograph some books and things today, I sign something very often to the kids. I'll sign "Follow Your Dreams," because I honestly did, and it really did work for me. So really kind of going after that kid kind of thing. I went through the equitation and the hunters, and I did all that, but I always, had this dream of going to the Olympics. And after the kind of equitation, junior jumpers, and then into open jumpers, and then really thought, this is what I want to do, and went to Spruce Meadows, actually 76. They had actually just started in 75, and there, oh my God, Eddie Mackin and Hans Gunther Winkler and these famous horsemen competing. I mean, the guys out of the picture books, Billy Steinkraus was there and as a judge, and Bert Nemeth as our chef to keep and things. It was amazing. I mean, really, this childhood kind of dream, and rode on the Olympic team. On the Spruce Meadows Nations Cup team, and against these Olympians. And sure enough, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I kept working at that. And then even, then finally George Morris was judging at Flint Ridge one year. I was already jumping in some national Grand Prix, the little Grand Prix we had. And George was, yeah, you can come to the East Coast. And then it's sort of funny because originally he said, oh no, she's too set in her ways. She won't make it. It was sort of a funny thing. And I was, I think, still a junior. I was still showing the juniors. And then hooked up with George. And again, this syndicate from the Flint Ridge Riding Club bought my first Olympic horse, my first World Cup horse, with my family, and it was pretty amazing because, I mean, you could almost say it was a Disney kind of story, because then in 1984, the Olympic Games were going to be in Los Angeles, and I'm from that area, Pasadena. I mean, right there, stone's throw away from the Santa Anita racetrack where the Olympics were, and how one thing led to another, starting in 81 to the East Coast to compete, and but really this. And now that I'm older, it's interesting, Cindy, with the mindset kind of thing, to do that now about life and business, whereas when I was young, oh my God, this Olympic dream, and, was fortunate to then get to go to 5 Olympic Games. And after one, I was alternate in Los Angeles, and then on to Korea, and, won a silver medal there, and I'm going to go again. So I got to go 4 years in a row, which was four quadrenniums, 4 games in a row. 2 team silver medals, 4th individually in Korea, all those things. And then again, to get to go back to Beijing in 2008, when I was turning 50. So it's really is quite fascinating, that following your dreams, just what you're talking about, some little thing in me, and all the work that goes into it. Absolutely. And then things kind of line up, the right coaches, the right horses, not that there aren't struggles and all along the way, and how you deal with all of it. Follow your dreams.
Yeah. So I want to point out, I'm sure everybody's observed as you started to talk about that, how you just came along. Like you were that little kid again, like you were right back in that same place. You were so dialed in. It was basically a non-negotiable for you, right? I would say that was, yes. This is what I was doing, and you stayed on that and stayed on that and stayed on that. So without realizing that you had adopted that winning mindset from a very, very early age, that brought to you all the resources that you needed. Not that it was definitely have all our struggles. So that's not mine.
Sorry, I guess it's here. Sorry. You keep going.
And into the picture she goes. So
sorry.
From our living room. So that, I mean, I love that piece that you just exuded, that emotionality attached to your dream. So you didn't know how it was going to unfold, but you kept working at it and working at it and working at it. So you had this strong belief system. You didn't know how, but you knew it was going to happen in some way, shape, or form. So you just kept pursuing it and pursuing it and pursuing it. So let's go back and look at that. Again, in the face of today's pandemic, how we can really be using this time to really for the good. And we'll be talking about that more later. Anne's got some really great suggestions, later on in our talk today. But I want to just do a little dive into literally how this works and how we end up operating from these sort of less than stellar places in our brain. So if I can just take a moment and just go back to, we come into this world with about 100 billion neurons in these brains. And we only have about 25 billion connections, neurosynaptic connections. And we come into this world with all the things we need for our survival, for eating, sleeping, crying, all those things. Those are wired in. The rest is designed for learning, and the learning is for survival. Because we have our survival-based mechanism that's carrying us forward right to this day. So that learning comes from our experiences. So our good experiences allow connections that make us feel good about ourselves, and our less than stellar experiences, our brain wants to do something with that. So if we have, I use this example, I like it. So little Susie has a play date with her girlfriend going to be at the playground, and she goes and her little friend doesn't show up. So So Susie's disappointed. Her friend hasn't shown up, but her brain needs to do something with that discomfort level. So it assigns it a meaning. And so the meaning could be, people can't be trusted, or the meaning could be, I don't matter, I'm not good enough for her to show up. So now she has that category in her brain. And as she goes through life, every subsequent situation that she encounters that slightly resembles that, her brain's going to put that in that category of, I don't matter, I'm not good enough. And it could be, the teacher not calling on her, or getting a bad grade, or somebody snubs her in the hallway, or all those things, because the brain is designed to learn something one time and one time only for our survival. So we cannot learn hot stove twice. We can't learn if we turn right out of the cave, the saber-toothed tiger is going to be there. We can't learn that twice. We learn it once. And so because the brain can't possibly filter out everything that's coming our way, it's going to take what it sees in front of us and it's going to put us in those categories. So we're constantly refilling those buckets of meanings that we've taken on about ourselves inadvertently, unknowingly, and they come with us throughout our entire lives. So it's a pretty amazing thing when we start to realize that this is just our subconscious operating. It's just wiring. We're not broken, that we can rewire for the very things we want. Next week, we're actually going to do some exercises around that. So take the pandemic today. It's thrown us into survival mode, right? Just we're operating from what's called our sympathetic nervous system, our fear, our flight, fright system, our hide system. Everything is coming from this. And from that system, we're going to default to all those, I'm not fill in the blank. One of those words you wrote down or you thought about when I first asked you to think of something negative that you might say about yourself that keeps coming up for you. So, what negative thoughts are dominating, especially now in the pandemic that's going on. We're gonna fight it because we want it to be, this wants everything order. This wants order all the time. So it's going to try and put things in boxes and perspectives. And so a lot of us are like, life will be okay when we get back to the way it was. And in that time, so some people say it's never going to be the same again. It's always going to be a little different. Whether it is or it isn't, we don't know how long that's going to be, right? And so we can be in that place of just struggle all the time, defaulting to our less than stellar mechanisms that tell us that we're not whatever you wrote down, in that place while we're waiting for everything to become normal again. So, and you've got some great suggestions for things that people can be doing. Is why I say that this could actually be a gift, this time, this shut down time where we're forced to do things differently. So we're going to be forced to think about things in new ways. And when we start to think about things in new ways, we start to rewire up here, because prior to this pandemic, so many of us were just going left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, struggle, grind, get to the next thing, or get to the, in this case, the next horse show, or the next client, or the next, whatever it is for us, and then we've got this struggle, whether it's a relationship or it's financial or it's health or wellness, keep coming up and hold us in this place that doesn't have us creating what it is we really want to create in our lives. So, and you've got some great ideas. This is, that will help people just to think out of the box of what they could be doing during this time, around their riding and their horses.
Yeah, I think just what you're saying, of course, things are different. Even doing these webinars, I've been teaching, with video and doing things differently because we've all been locked up. But I think for a lot of you viewers out there, and I don't know, some places are totally locked up still. Some people still might not be able to ride at all. Some might be riding. Here in the U.S., June 1st, the USEF has said horse shows can start again, but each whatever county and state have all their own rules and guidelines. So who knows? Many horse shows have been canceled, so it's up in the air for sure. I guess for me, talking to different people and myself as well, things that, you can be doing. First of all, I always think my personal fitness, I'm active. I like to be active. So, and here at my farm, I have a gym that's developed sort of over the years, but you certainly can exercise, which maybe many of you are, without that. Pilates and yoga and running. And I think that also helps your mental being, and I know myself, the physically stronger and fitter you are, the mentally, I think, stronger you are. Physically, all of that goes together. That part of it, for some that are really locked up and not being able to ride much, there is so much information out there, websites and videos of, watch your favorite riders, learn about that. I mean, there's so much information that now you have the time. Gosh, I don't have the time to read that book. I mean, there are so many great books out there on horsemanship. Myself, actually, even a little bit more the Western. Recently, we have some young horses, and I have some new younger grooms, and even them, let's watch Buck Brannaman. Let's work on the ground with the horses more. But so whatever you guys are drawn to, and whether you're hunters or jumpers, or maybe you need to work on your dressage, your more flat work and not so much jumping. Probably the main thing with the horses is to enjoy them. This time that we're not competing all the time, and even myself, when I got home from Florida, it started when I was in Florida, but we shipped home, to just enjoy the horses. Okay, I don't know when we're going to show again, and to take the time and turn out a little more, really observe the horses. And so much with horses, to me, is patience and doing things on the horses' terms and what the horses really need. And many people don't talk about that so much today because it's competition. And even in the teaching I've been doing, and now it's opened up that people can come for lessons, and I am teaching here as well as online. But it's so nice in a weird way. I mean, I'm enjoying it a lot that it's not focused on go to the next horse show. It's back to the basics and taking the time for the basics and doing some funny little exercises, tying knots in the reins or dropping the stirrups, different things like that maybe if you were going to the horse show, I mean, probably I'd still do some of that, kids going to the horse show, but without the pressure. And again, being on the horse's terms. I think also you can ride without stirrups, make the time for that kind of work. For me, then, as far as working, again, depends on if you're showing, you're getting ready to show or not, you're getting ready for return to play. Are your horses fit enough? All of that before you go to the show. But then working on your weaknesses. That's where I always sort of go back to in my training. Is it I need more flat work, time to work on my dressage, or time to work without stirrups? Even working on distance, depth perception, finding the distance. Well, you can canter over poles on the ground forever and not kill your horses, without jumping big jumps and wearing their legs out. But you're working on counting exercises and doing little courses with poles on the ground and cavaletti, that kind of work. I mean, there's so much that you can do. I think also with some of this work, and maybe you younger people do it anyway, videotaping your lessons and videotaping your riding and that kind of, so you can review those more. And another thing, these are kind of many things, and I could kind of go on and on, but is like when Cindy, we started and she said, you have a journal, do you have a notebook? And to keep yourselves accountable, I've always journaled some. I always journal. But so all these things that you want to work, whether it's riding without stirrups or watching some video or reading a book, journal about it, and really to make yourself accountable that you are doing the lessons. You're not sort of just lost out there floundering, with a bit more structure. Personally, I like it better. I don't know, Cindy, you can talk about the brain about that, but having a structure about it. And yes, you can also refer to it. But there are many, many things you can be doing now on and off the horse.
Absolutely.
At this time.
Right. That's awesome. It really is using this time to think outside the box, and because we're not in a daily grind. Now we can say, I'm going to do it differently because maybe I wasn't quite to the level that I wanted to be at, or I was struggling with this with my horse, or whatever your situation is. And so how can I do it differently? Because and different, by the way, is uncomfortable. and it should be uncomfortable. So if it's, you said this in a lesson a long time ago, and I used to do it with my students too, if you're making a correction or you're changing something, if it feels comfortable, you're not doing it. Because our brain wants to keep getting us back into the same groove. It knows that groove. It doesn't want you to explore. We're wired for survival. We're not wired for thriving and trying on new things. You know, back in the early cave days, that was dangerous. And so I hear people say all the time, oh, I hate change. I say, no, we're wired to not like change, because change meant danger. But change doesn't necessarily mean danger today. And so how can you do it differently? The other thing you said on a phone call we had, Anne, was can you just go in and visit with your horse if you're not allowed to ride in your stable, and just spend some time and observe him in a different way than you may have before. And you know, if we find ourselves getting short and tense while we're riding, can we just let go of that for just in the ride? Just say, I'm going to take a breath, and I'm just going to walk my horse, and maybe out on the trail or just around the ring without stirrups, and just do it differently, because until we start doing it differently, we're not going to create the change that it is we're looking for. And you've been super creative over the years about just exemplifying that. You know, how can we do it a little bit differently in a way that will help you to move forward? But we have to, you know, goodness, you know, not the virus, but we do have to pull our own rug out from under our feet a little bit and say, yeah, this isn't quite working, right? This isn't quite working. And I'm going to give myself permission to do it differently. I don't have to race, as you say, to the next horse show. So, you know, next week we're going to talk about like how to change these early beliefs and meanings we've got wired in there unknowingly that are holding us back. But I asked you to write down everyone to write down what's the negative self-talk that keeps coming up for you in any situation. And then also, I'm going to write that down without judgment, by the way. No judgment. We all have that negative self-talk. So you're going to just jot those down. And then also to write down the dream. Allow yourself to dream, and allow yourself to dream a little bigger than you have been right now, in a way that might be like, oh, I have no idea. Like you said early on, you had no idea about the Olympics or that you could even possibly go. You're this starstruck kid, but you still had that dream out there. And we'll talk later about how the brain really thinks in pictures. So we can allow ourselves, this is the perfect time to do it. How can I do it differently? What could I do? What could be my big goal? Maybe it's not just getting to the next division up at a horse show. Maybe it's bigger than that, you know? So if we can take this week to what's the negative self-talk that keeps bubbling up, and what's the big dream? And just notice that there's a gap in there. There's always going to be a gap. And we'll be talking more about that next webinar. But I'll just ask you, and if anybody's watching and doing this exercise, to, again, when you start to name the negative things, if you use the language, oh, there I go again. Yes, I always do this, in a derogatory way to yourself, you're enhancing that. What we're trying to do is notice it. Oh, I'm having a negative moment about that. And I share with Anne recently, and this is a great example, is that I've recently here I'm in Arizona, and so I've taken up the sport of golf. And I have never, because I did the horses my entire life, I've never held an instrument that hit a ball. So no softball, no tennis, no nothing. You know, I was always the horses. And so I'm literally learning from the ground up. And so I don't have any reference point in my brain for where to put this and that. And it's a little disconcerting. You know, I have nothing to call on. And so I've been in this place of observing myself and my reaction to that. Oh, this is uncomfortable. I just hit, 6 shots and I didn't like any one of them, and, but how can I do it differently? But how can I do it differently without the talk that says, well, that was crappy, whatever my self-talk is, it's a wonderful opportunity to be an observance. And so as we write down it can be a really long list of whatever the fears and the frustrations, the challenges, the negativity that comes up for you. We all have it. Know that we all have it. Know that it's part of our wiring. Some of it was designed to keep us safe, from a very early ancestry. And we can actually work with it, and we can create new highways in the brain, new super highways for what it is we do want to create, which you did, Anne, at a very, very early age. So notice, because we have had the whole world is, as I said, upside down, that negative self-talk will come up naturally throughout the week. It probably will be 10x'd in many ways because we're under a lot of stress, because we just want to have things back to normal. So when we see it come up, this is a time to be kind of kind to ourselves and just say, okay, I noticed that this is coming up, and how can I shift that? And we'll talk more about shifting it next week. But just for me, it's just the noticing. Oh, look at that. There I am. I'm having a frustration, and just noticing, and not make myself bad or wrong or anything for having that moment. Just be an observance of it. And then also be an observance of how you want it to be. Like all the exercises that Anne's talking about are fantastic. What can you do? Go ahead.
Just to touch on that, which I didn't talk about, but the spending the time with your horses really, and even when I got back from Florida, it's become such a business, the riding and having a farm, and it's business, and going to the next horse show and clients and all of that, and really coming home, there was the fear piece of the virus, and what do you do, and everything on hold, and yet really enjoying the time with my horses, and that. I have to tell you, quite honestly, becoming a little kid again, just what you were talking about, in a sense, even about the Olympic dream. But I think the bonding you can do with your horse. I mean, even I'm an adult. I've been doing this a long time, and I love my horses. And in Florida, I have time to play with UK as my Grand Prix horse now that I'm developing, and but to take the time, or even here, which I do anyway. But I have to say, I know I did it on a different level. Seeing the old horses, we have a bunch of retired horses, Grand Prix horses, hunters, having the time to go really spend time with the horses. That's why I do this. That's why I got into this sport. Yes, I wanted to go to the Olympics, but more than anything, and even today, it's honest to God, the love of the horse. And even in my teaching, I can get kind of choked up about it. Even in my teaching, it's to give back to the horses. It's not so much for the people as it is for the horses. Yes, to make the people better for the horses, but honest to God, the love of the horse, and to not forget that, to spend the time with the old horses, to watch the horses in the paddock, to trail ride. I have 130 acres here, and I can ride through the woods and walk around, hack around on the Grand Prix field. But to have that time, because they're such magical, amazing beings, and that always I'm so thankful to have them in my life, and all that they've done for me, not only Olympics, but growing up as a little, all the things they've done for me, that part of it, to really take the time to appreciate the horse for all that they do for us. Anyway, so I'll stop there, but to take the time to enjoy that, your horses.
Spoke right to the one hack that we can do that will shift this when we're having a downer about something, is gratitude, is appreciation, because that shifts us out of the one nervous system into the one that's our creative side, and from there we can create what we want, and we can take a breath and a pause, and all the other pieces that we might have been hanging on to can go away when we shift into gratitude like that on a daily basis. That's really awesome.
So we'll take some questions, you think, now, Cindy? Do you have more for today?
I have the ones that Kelly, she wants to jump on at some point. I printed up the ones that got, a couple of them that got emailed in. So this is a great one. This question: when you feel yourself slipping out of a positive, focused mindset, what techniques or tools do you use to refocus? And I would automatically go to what we just said is perfect timing, because I would take a breath and be in gratitude. When I things are not going well, and I find myself arguing with my horse, maybe, and emotionality, which doesn't belong in training, we all know, but it creeps up anyway for so many people. In that moment, can we just shift over to a state of gratitude, and from there we can rebuild again? So that would be my go-to. And Anne, you can take what you would do there yourself.
Yeah, actually, can you repeat it once again?
Yeah, so it was: when you feel yourself slipping out of a positive, focused mindset, what techniques or tools do you use to refocus?
Yeah, I think the gratitude part for sure. And then also, if you can, to put yourself into a I'm thinking more almost of a competition time, but how you did do well, you have done well, you have had a great round, you have won with this horse or whatever, or you had a great lesson last week. Okay, you're having a crummy lesson today. But in your mind to go there also, and that's gratitude as well, to be thankful that you had the other experience, but to yeah, of course, I got this. I did this last week. I won the last horse show, or whenever, or 10 years ago. I mean, it could be, yeah, I've done this. Um, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's, what can I do to shift it? And that's a visualization, isn't it?
Yes.
For what has gone right, that shifts your brain like over to that place right there. As next week we'll answer them even further, some of the other techniques that we can use in our health, and some breathing exercises and meditations, things that we use to get ourselves back on track, that we need to do to get this thing working for us, to put ourselves back in it. So the next question is, I like this one. Sometimes it seems the harder I try, the worse I get. I try not to get too discouraged and cut myself some slack. However, it feels like if you're not out there grinding, hustling, or working for it, you must not want it, i.e. success of some sort. How do I keep my brain from going into analytical overdrive and ease up on myself? This is an awesome question. So I would just, for me, if you were a coaching client of mine, I would just immediately say, I would start talking about the meaning that we give to this interpretation that if you're not working hard, you must not want it. That's something that got installed at an early age for you. Because that we know that probably not to be true, but that's something that you're afraid might be true. Just the basic technique, like we talked about already, you can definitely interrupt that with a breathing technique while you're riding. You can do it when you're on the horse, off the horse. You can set new goals. But there's something in the middle of this that you're defaulting to, and we all do it. We all have something. And so you painted this really beautiful picture here for a lot of people, actually. You're trying to have success and you're intensely working on it. I think we need to back up, take a breath, have gratitude, appreciate the horse, like Anne has just said. And Anne, if you want to add to that, jump
Yeah.
in.
I'll try to make it as short as I can, but I was sharing with Cindy the other day that years and years ago, I also got to work. I had these books that I read and things, and then got to work with Dr. Bob Rotella, who's a very famous golf sports psychologist guru now. And they had him at Gladstone before the Pan Am Games in Caracas, Venezuela in '83, and then again before the Los Angeles Olympic Games. And I got to work with Dr. Rotella. And this was really a huge part of my I'll never forget it, and I share it very often. This was it was '84. We were getting ready for the trials to go to the Los Angeles, make the Olympic team to go to Los Angeles. And I go into this room in Gladstone, New Jersey, the team headquarters. I don't even know if the room's there anymore. And sitting in this big armchair, and I'm sharing all my fears, the owner and my coaches, Jimmy Williams and George Morris, and how to deal with them. And I'm the youngest one, and one of the younger ones trying to get on the team. All these fears and things, and practically in tears, and felt like it was very safe. I could speak to Dr. Rotella. He wouldn't tell anybody. He's not going to share it with anybody. And all these fears, and then I'm not gonna get on the '84 team. And again, it's in Los Angeles, and I want to go, and all those things. I'm from there, and he walks around, and finally he stops in front of me, and he says, "Anne, when I'm hearing you say, when you won the Grand Prix in Rome last year, '83, and I was the first woman, and maybe the first American or the second American, anyway, to win the Grand Prix of Rome, and I was like 21 or something. And you won double gold medals at the Pan American Games last year. And when you have won all these other things you've done, and you were having fun. And it sounds to me like you are not having any fun right now." And with that, sitting in that chair, 1,000,000 pounds of pressure went off my shoulders. I mean, it was wild. Why? I don't know. However he put it, just like that. I will never forget it. And with that, I walked out of the room light as a feather, happy, thankful for the horses, and it would all work out. Sure enough, I made it to the Los Angeles Olympics. I was the alternate. Then again, to keep going. Then again, so 2008, the Beijing Games, and I'm going to try to get on the team again. And I'm like turning 50 and hadn't been to the last couple of, I did 4 in a row, and I didn't do some Olympics, but had 2 horses. And so, okay, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to try to go to the Olympics again. And I have to say, the whole time, trials, owners, green horse, the whole time I remember Dr. Rotella, and I thought, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have fun in this experience. Sure enough, made the long list to go to the, Europe and show these horses in Europe. And I made the team. I ended up being the alternate there. I had a very young horse and things. But oh my God, have fun. So all of that pressure that you're talking about, don't forget to have fun. Be gratitude and have fun.
Exactly. It reminded me, I spoke often sort of towards the later years when, I still have my business, that I started to become an observance of some of the trainers that would show up at the horse shows, and they just didn't look too happy, and they were struggling, and they might not be using the best tone with their students. And I would say back then, I bet they forget what it was like when they drove in the driveway, when they were a kid learning how to ride, and how much fun, how much they anticipated what it was going to be like. And that's something that you learn that lesson. I mean, you had it as a kid, you lost it for a little bit. He helped you get it back again. And that stayed with you. This whole idea, we got in this for the love of the horse and for the fun of the sport, right? So a really, really good example.
And from that, the success comes from having fun. Not that I don't work hard on it, didn't work hard on it, but that is really what gave me the success.
Right.
Because that's a mindset for sure.
It's absolute mindset. You are now literally in the parasympathetic nervous system, operating from a creative place, as opposed to the one that's dragging you down. So this would probably speak to our last question also. We may have answered it for her. The question is, I'm looking for ways to help the adult rider who is too much of a perfectionist that it hurts her, or so much of a perfectionist that it hurts her performance. She's a very good rider who is aware she is not riding as well in her 60s as she did in her 20s. And so some of what we've already said would definitely apply there. And I would be, again, if she were a client of mine, I'd be the actual, her student, her adult student. It would be helping her work towards ways to reframe that idea that she has, that she should be riding like she did when she was in her 20s, that she should have the same strength, ability, flexibility, all those components, and develop some level of acceptance, because there's something she's telling herself about herself that's keeping her from doing it. And so she's putting a lot of pressure on herself. So it'd be going back to the basics again, wouldn't it, Anne? Just to go
Absolutely.
have easy exercises to build up slowly, allow yourself, the big allowing yourself to be at that level and work up from there. But that's a hard piece, but it's doable.
Yes, for sure. And again, to be thankful and enjoy it. If you're still riding, I mean, isn't that a blessing? Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I left it for 10 years and then came back, actually. I was often doing the coaching world, and I didn't have my stable anymore. And I also didn't ride, and then I had this wonderful opportunity to ride with a local trainer where I was living in Pennsylvania at the time. And shout out to Ellen. I had to allow that, no, I wasn't at the same level that I was a long, long time ago, and had to be okay with it and really grateful for it. And I really was. I mean, it really just was lit up every day that I got to go put my foot in that stirrup, so it was really great. And now I'm doing the same thing with golf. Something I get to work on. It's not quite the same as riding, probably never will be, but it's something that I get to work on. I get to, and so I have to accept that I'm not a Phil Mickelson. I'm probably not ever Phil Mickelson, but I can enjoy this game, and I can keep getting better and keep getting better. There's always something to learn. That's the beauty of the horses.
Yes.
Never, because it's another being. We're always learning, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely. Always on them, off of them, all of it. Yeah.
Yes. They're such a true blessing. They teach us about us, and they give back in so many ways. Yeah. So I don't know, is Kelly going to jump on? I see she's muted. Kelly, you're going to jump on with any more questions that showed up in the chat box? Ah, there she is. Hello, Kelly. Kelly.
Okay. So we did get a bunch of questions via Facebook Live and a couple here on the chat. We have one here on the chat that says, do you have anything in particular that you may say to students that seem to be on a learning curve or stuck in a rut?
Oh gosh, I would love her to elaborate on what the learning curve is. I mean, like stuck on a lower learning curve, like they're not advancing. That would be I just want a little more clarity around that question, but it would be, I think Anna was saying, you got to shake it up, if they're in a rut, we all get in ruts, so.
Do something different, use a different, again, go for a trail ride, change your, an exercise, give a totally different exercise, do something totally different with them.
Always about shaking it up. Next.
Okay, and then we have one that says, Anne, what actions and advice would you give someone who's pursuing the top level of the sport on top of never giving up?
Pursuing the top level of the sport and never giving up?
Yeah, I guess on top of the advice of not giving up, what other advice would you give someone that's trying to get to the top level?
Again, I would say enjoy the journey. I was very focused. Like I say, you go to the gym, nutrition, I never got. Now I'm into nutrition, but growing up, that wasn't so much. But the gym and the sports psychology and ride 15, 20 horses a day, go to the ring and watch all these other people ride, because we didn't have so much video later, but not like we have today. I mean, I would really work at it. And even after a couple of Olympics and World Cup finals, quite honestly, to really stop and say, I'm going to enjoy this. I'd go, on the road with, say, Melanie Smith. She was always great. We were competing in Europe and things, and she always went sightseeing, and she always bought neat things, and she got posted, not me, golly, I'm going to stay at the barn, and I don't know, I can't do that. And I mean, it's pretty funny. And I learned through time, no, enjoy the journey, the ups and the downs and all of it. Yes, focus. But like Cindy's talking about, that your creative juices will flow more when you're also enjoying it. Not that I didn't, oh my God, I enjoyed the struggle. I mean, that's part of, I think, a little bit of a winner and being a little bit the Olympian. I think there's a passion a little bit for the struggle. But while you're doing it, and as I say, by the time I got to the Hong Kong Games, the Beijing, to really enjoy the journey.
That's awesome, man. So it's like that there are now today, there are many videos, certainly through your membership site, all your videos are wonderful. There's lots of other videos out there that instead of doing the I should be, no, we just do it, watch them and learn and learn and learn. And you always, back before videos, you said you go to the ring and just watch the really top riders and what can I take in, about that, and how can I keep advancing that way? That puts you up in that mindset, up in that sort of energetic place that's going to propel you forward on a day in, day out basis, even with the struggles.
Yes, right.
Okay, and then there's someone who's saying that they wanted to know if either of you practiced meditation.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. We're going to be talking more about that. I'm doing in how to shift your mindset, how to rewire your brain, but meditation, I'll jump the gun right now since the question got raised. Absolutely. Meditation is one of the greatest game changers there is. It's a total reset. It allows you to literally get totally in touch with you, grounded, and open this up to new idea and new possibility on a day in, day out basis. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I know Anne's an avid meditator as well.
Yeah, and I think even today more so with so much going on, the pandemic part of it also, but even just in the last bunch of years when things with the websites and the cell phones and again, when I started, it wasn't like that. I'm not that old, but I'm pretty old. There's so much more that goes on in a day. And to me, that meditation, it's the focus and the relaxing and the turning all that other noise off and really consciously being able to do that again. So when you're showing and you really need to be clear in your thoughts and that kind of stuff, it also helps that way with all the things Cindy's saying as well. But to really, can I stop all this other stuff that's going on?
Yeah, that's so awesome and so neat, especially now with the craziness. It was going on before that we needed it because there's way too much coming in our direction all the time. But now with sort of the craziness out there, that idea of getting centered and grounded on a day in, day out basis brings me to, I'll probably talk about this more, but the one element, the takeaway for me is, and meditation is a great tool into that, is developing a level of acceptance. And acceptance is not the same as I approve. It's not approval. It's not, I don't approve of this virus. But acceptance is I can't do anything about it. And I have to accept that. Or my horses, things are going badly right now. I have to accept that. Okay, take it. It's just things are going badly. I can take a breath and I can do a reset. Meditation will help you get to that place repeatedly on a daily basis. So we can keep dialing this back in, this level of, okay, being in observance of, oh, I see I'm getting frustrated, right? Or I notice I'm watching the news too much. I used to be a news junkie and I don't turn on the news anymore because it's just dragging me down the rabbit hole. There's like no point. I can't do anything about it. I can sort of watch and see what's happening a little bit, but it's just pointless at this point for me. So yes, meditation, I'm glad that came up because it's a really great grounding one.
Great. Yes. And that's all the questions I have for you guys for today. And I put into the chat information about the next webinar next Monday at 6:30, June 1st. And how to register for that is on the chat, so people can look there to register. And I also put in how people can contact us with the questions for that webinar, which is ann@annkursinski.com via email. And also how to learn more about Ann and Cindy, our presenters. Their websites, writingandjumpingmentor.com, and Cindy's is soaringlifecoaching.com/soar. And you'll see that in the chat as well. So you can not have to just take notes while I'm talking. You could just go to your chat and see that information.
Awesome. So I hope people do the exercises during the week and really pause and take a break and really do that inward look on a daily basis. And again, if there are more questions, that's great. Send them. We'd love to hear from everybody. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Ann, so much for hosting this. It's a great opportunity. I'm excited to carry forward over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited to share with our world how to. I'm thankful to have Cindy on board with this mental mindset and the neuroscience, all of that. The things that we do, and then to really have some sense made of it. Oh yeah, it's just the way I'm wired, and I can do things to change it. I can do things. I don't have to be like that forever. So that's very exciting, and I love to share that with all of you people out there. I'm so glad you signed up, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And please send more questions. And yeah, really, really fun these times, getting to check in with everybody. So thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you next week.
Ann, and thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.